Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really digging into Brexit, a decision well, it's profoundly reshaped the UK, hasn't it? And
Mhm.
sparked so much debate globally.
Absolutely. It's huge.
We've gathered your excellent sources, articles, research, your notes, and we're going to try and cut through some of the noise.
Yeah, try and pin down what actually happened and what it's really meant.
Exactly. Our mission is to give you the essential facts, help you understand the really big shifts since the UK decided to leave the EU.
hmm
We'll look at the journey, the economic side of things, and, where things stand now, especially with this recent reset deal we've been hearing about.
Indeed. And it's fascinating how complex it is and how the whole story, the narrative, has kind of evolved, hasn't it?
Definitely.
So we'll explore the motivations, the immediate fallout, and like you said, how things look now, mid-2025.
Hopefully giving you a really solid understanding of, well, a pivotal moment in modern history.
Distilled right down. Okay, so let's set the stage. Quick recap, the absolute basics. What exactly is Brexit, starting with that key vote?
Right. So at its heart, Brexit just means the UK leaving the European Union.
Simple as that, on the surface.
On the surface, yeah. The big moment was that referendum. June 23, 2016. That's when 52% voted leave, 48% remain.
A really close result.
Very close. The official exit day was January 31st, 2020. Then there was this 11-month transition period,
Okay.
and that ended December 31st, 2020. That's when the UK formally left the EU's single market and customs union, the big economic break.
Got it. And the voters who exactly got to vote in that 2016 referendum, was it just England or?
No, it was a national vote. All UK citizens 18 and over.
So that's England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland.
Exactly. All four nations. Now, obviously, there were big regional differences in the results.
Yeah, you could really see that split.
But the decision itself was UK-wide.
Okay, so we have the what leaving the EU and the when, those key dates. But the how, I mean, getting from the vote to actually leaving, that was incredibly complicated, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A real roller coaster. The formal process, that really kicked off when Theresa May, the prime minister then, triggered Article 50.
Article 50, right, I remember that.
That was March 29, 2017. That officially started the two-year clock, theoretically, for exit negotiations.
Theoretically.
Yeah, well, those negotiations ran from mid-2017, basically, through late 2019. They were intense.
What were the big sticking points?
Key issues like citizens' rights, EU citizens in the UK and UK citizens in the EU, the financial settlement, the so-called divorce bill,
Mm-hmm.
and critically, the Northern Ireland border. That became a huge, huge issue.
Yeah, that dominated the headlines for ages.
It really did. And that whole period politically was just chaos in the UK. Theresa May's withdrawal agreement, the deal she negotiated, it just kept getting voted down in Parliament again and again.
It was painful to watch sometimes.
It was. In the end, it was Boris Johnson who took over, renegotiated parts of the deal, got it through Parliament, and that set the final departure date.
Okay. So fast forward, end of 2020, the transition's over. The UK is formally out of the single market and customs union. For you, our listener, what were the immediate sort of tangible changes? What did people actually notice on the ground?
Well, right from the start of 2021, you saw new border checks appearing. More customs paperwork for businesses trading with the EU.
Friction, basically.
Friction, exactly.
Yeah.
And clear divergence in regulations between the UK and EU started to emerge. Things just weren't seamless anymore.
Right.
But what's also interesting, and the sources point this out, is how quickly the UK tried to pivot. It started pushing hard to reshape its global trade ties.
Looking beyond Europe.
Yeah. Striking new trade deals, or trying to, with countries like Australia, the US, India, forging these new paths outside the EU framework.
And speaking of reshaping, this reset deal from mid-2025, it sounds quite important, almost like hitting a refresh button. What's the deal with that?
It is significant, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the UK, now under Prime Minister Starmer's Labour government, securing this new agreement with the EU.
Okay, what does it do?
It's aimed at smoothing things over, basically. Easing some of those new food checks at the border, aligning standards in certain specific areas to help trade flow better.
Practical stuff.
Very practical. Also opening EU e-gates for UK citizens, again, making travel a bit easier. Deepening defense collaboration. New fisheries arrangements that run right through to 2038.
So quite broad then.
It is. And it also aimed to tweak that really complex Northern Ireland protocol, which, for listeners, was the arrangement designed to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland by keeping Northern Ireland aligned with some EU rules.
The one that caused so much political trouble.
Exactly. That protocol itself was later sort of refined by something called the Windsor Framework. And this reset deal builds on that further. It's all about trying to make the post-Brexit reality work a bit more smoothly, especially around Northern Ireland.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've done the what and the how, but let's get into the why. Why did the UK go down this path in the first place? What were the main arguments, the core drivers for leaving?
Well, the Leave campaign, the proponents of Brexit, they had a pretty clear set of arguments. It really boiled down to regaining control.
Take back control. That was the slogan, wasn't
That
it?
was the main one, yeah.
Yeah.
Control over laws, so Parliament is supreme. Control over borders, which tied into ending the free movement of people from the EU.
Mm-hmm.
Control over money, reducing payments into the EU budget, and regaining national sovereignty, the ability to act independently on the world stage, strike its own trade deals.
So it was framed very much as like a democratic reclaiming of power,
Very much so. Reclaiming national democracy, self-governance. That was the core pitch.
which naturally leads to the huge question that's hung over this whole thing. Okay,
Yeah.
you've regained control, but has it actually been good for the UK, economically speaking?
Ah, the million-dollar question, or rather the multi-billion-pound question.
And looking at the sources you shared, the economic data seems to paint a pretty stark picture. It doesn't look great, does it?
No, the consensus among most economists, based on the data we have so far, is, well, it's not positive. Real GDP, the overall size of the economy, is estimated to be 2–3% lower right now than it likely would have been if the UK had stayed in the EU
2 to 3% lower today.
today. And the forecast suggests it could be 5–6% lower by 2035.
Wow. And what does that mean for individuals? Is there a per-person figure?
Yeah, the analysis translates the GDP hit into an average income loss of around £2,300 per person.
£2,300 per person. I mean, that's not abstract, is it? That's real money out of people's pockets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a tangible impact on household budgets, on living standards.
And were there specific areas, specific sectors that felt this more acutely than others? It wasn't just an across-the-board dip, was it?
No, definitely not uniform. Services exports to the EU, for example, a really important part of the UK economy, they dropped around 4–5% overall.
Oh.
But within that, some specific service sectors saw really dramatic declines, even up to 90% in some cases, according to the sources.
90%? Goodness.
Yeah, it really shows the impact of losing that seamless access. And just overall trade volumes, imports and exports with the EU, they are still below where they were before Brexit. One figure puts the drop in exports at around £27 billion.
27 billion.
It underlines just how deeply integrated the UK economy had become with the EU. Even small new barriers, that friction we talked about, it adds up to a significant drag.
It's quite a counterpoint to the arguments made during the campaign about, unleashing global trade opportunities, isn't it?
It certainly presents a challenge to that narrative, yes. The argument was that new deals would compensate, but the data so far suggests the losses from reduced EU trade haven't been offset.
And how has public opinion tracked alongside these economic realities? Have people's views on Brexit changed?
Well, polls suggest they have. According to Euronews, looking back 5 years after the formal departure, a majority of the British public now seem to view Brexit as having been a mistake.
So a shift from that 52-48 split.
A noticeable shift, yeah, as the lived experience and the economic data have become clearer over time.
Okay, so moving beyond the big economic numbers, what about the sort of day-to-day realities for businesses trying to operate, for citizens? What did losing that frictionless access really mean?
Well, for businesses, especially those trading heavily with the EU, it meant delays at borders, more red tape, higher costs, adapting to new customs declarations, rules of origin, product standards. It was a big adjustment.
A headache, basically.
A significant operational headache for many, yes.
And what about that idea of regulatory autonomy, setting your own rules? Has that delivered the kind of freedom envisioned?
It's a nuanced picture. The UK can now set its own rules, that's true. But in practice, because the EU is still such a massive trading partner, the UK often finds itself needing to align with EU standards anyway, just to facilitate trade.
So divergence is maybe less practical than it sounds.
It can be, yeah. The desire for smooth trade often limits the actual scope for doing things radically differently. And a really big one, especially for the City of London, was losing those financial services passporting rights.
Yes, explain that quickly.
Basically, before Brexit, UK financial firms could operate right across the EU single market from their London base. That automatic right disappeared.
A big blow for a key UK industry.
A very significant impact, yes. It's forced firms to set up subsidiaries, move staff, navigate different rules.
And shifting from finance to, well, people, what about the impact on jobs, on the workforce? We heard a lot about immigration during the campaign.
Right. The end of free movement meant new immigration rules, a points-based system. This definitely restricted the inflow of EU workers.
Which was an aim for the Leave side.
It was an explicit aim, yes, to control immigration numbers. But the flip side, as the sources highlight, is that it significantly worsened labor shortages in key sectors.
Like which ones?
We've seen major issues reported in healthcare, the NHS relying heavily on EU staff previously, also agriculture, needing seasonal workers, and hospitality. Sectors that often relied on that pool of EU labor are now really struggling to fill vacancies.
So an intended consequence, but with some perhaps unintended negative side effects.
Exactly. It's created bottlenecks in certain areas.
Okay, so bringing us up to the present day, or near enough, mid-2025, what's the overall economic climate like, according to the sources?
Well, as of mid-2025, the picture painted is one of an economy that's contracting. Growth is sluggish, maybe even negative, and government debt remains very high, around 94% of GDP.
94%, that's a big number.
It is. Significant borrowing, partly due to recent global shocks like the pandemic and energy crisis, but the underlying Brexit impact on growth hasn't helped the public finances either.
Right, and it's against that backdrop contracting economy, high debt, that this reset deal you mentioned seems particularly interesting. Why push for closer ties, or at least repaired ties, now?
I think it signals a degree of pragmatism setting in. Faced with these economic headwinds, the Starmer government seems to be actively looking for ways to reduce the friction with the EU where possible.
Trying to ease the economic pain points.
Exactly. Ease those trade barriers where they can, like the food checks. Deepen security links, which is seen as mutually beneficial.
Right.
It's not about rejoining, not at all, but it's about finding a more practical, less confrontational working relationship.
And you mentioned migration and ports earlier, too.
Yes, there have been ongoing issues, particularly with small boat crossings in the English Channel. That remains a really hot political topic.
Still very contentious.
Very. Although the sources mentioned some small-scale asylum returns to France starting under new agreements, it suggests attempts are being made to manage the situation, even if it's still a major challenge.
Okay, this is super helpful. To really crystallize it for everyone listening, maybe we could do a quick sort of side-by-side, pre-Brexit versus now, based on everything we've discussed from the sources.
Good idea.
So, trade. Before, seamless access to the single market and customs union. Now, new rules, checks, and trade volumes with the EU down roughly 27 billion services. Before, seamless exports with EU passporting, especially for finance. Now, exports down 4-5% overall. Some sectors hit way harder, up to 90%.
That's a key one.
Regulation. Before, largely EU-wide standards.
Right.
Now, UK sets its own rules, but often aligns with the EU anyway to help trade.
That practical alignment is crucial.
Immigration. Before, free movement across the EU. Now,
Yep.
a points-based system leading to those labor shortages in key areas.
Yeah. Healthcare, farming, hospitality.
Sovereignty. Before, shared governance within the EU framework. Now, legislative control regained by the UK Parliament.
That's the core political delivery of Brexit.
And finally, public opinion. Before, mixed, but 52% voted leave. Now, polls suggest a majority view it as a mistake.
A definite shift over time.
So putting all that together,
Yeah.
what's the bottom line from these sources?
Well, the bottom line seems to be this. If the main objective was reclaiming sovereignty, taking back control over laws and borders, then yes, Brexit delivered on that fundamental promise.
Politically, it did what it set out to do.
Politically, yes. However, economically, the evidence presented in these sources points pretty clearly towards significant costs: lower growth, reduced trade, lower average incomes, and arguably a diminished standing on the global economic stage.
And the reset deal.
That mid-2025 reset deal, it really signals, I think, a cautious pragmatism. It's an acknowledgement by the current government that they need to ease some of the economic friction caused by Brexit. But crucially, it doesn't undo the fundamental departure or reverse that core economic damage that's been identified. It's more like trying to manage the consequences better.
Finding a workable path forward within the new reality.
Precisely. A less ideological, perhaps more practical approach to the UK-EU relationship post-Brexit.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, our listener? Our deep dive into your sources really shows, I think, just how profoundly Brexit has reshaped Britain.
Politically, it delivered that control people voted for. But economically, the sources suggest it has undeniably left scars, significant ones.
Yeah, and that ultimate question of whether it was worth it, well, that really depends heavily on how you, the listener, weigh that political control against the economic costs and perhaps the impact on national cohesion. There's no single easy answer.
It's about priorities, isn't it? What you value most.
Exactly. And the very fact that years after leaving, the UK is seeking this reset deal with the EU, well, it does seem to underline that the UK still recognizes just how vital that relationship with its European neighbors is, even from the outside.
A partnership it chose to leave but still needs to engage with.
Precisely. It suggests maybe a future of pragmatic collaboration, even without membership, remains essential. Definitely something to keep thinking about as the story continues to unfold.
Thanks for watching the video.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments below. If there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover next time, do let us know.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And if you found this one helpful, make sure to share it with others too.
See you in the next video.